Hello. This is my 2023 Yamaha YZF-R7 HO. I've had it for 4 months and nearly 2,000 kilometers, and I think that's long enough for me to be starting to feel pretty familiar and comfortable with it, so I thought I might give you a quick review. It won't be specs and all that kind of thing. You can get that information in loads of other places. It's really just an owner's review. I'll explain why we got it, what I like about it, things I don't like about it, and I might end up including a bit of an unfair and inappropriate comparison to my Ducati Supersport. So stay tuned if you're keen to work out whether an R7 is worth the money or not. So the reason we have this R7 is that we traded in Scotty's MT-07. Neither of us liked that bike. For us at least, it was just too upright a sitting position, and maybe that's because of our background with a lot of cycling. We're just more comfortable, kind of leaned over a bit more. The suspension was not great. I didn't really enjoy the lack of fairings either. It sort of felt quite exposed to the wind. And most of all, the seat was just so uncomfortable. We tried 3 different seats on that bike, and we just couldn't get comfortable on it. So especially Scott, like he would just half an hour, 45 minutes, and he'd be wanting to get off. So we went and test rode an R7, same engine as the MT-07, and a Yamaha, which is kind of Scott's choice. And when we test rode this, we thought it was fun. It felt much sportier. Scott was instantly more comfortable on it. And so we traded in the MT-07, and now we have this R7. And I say we because technically we share this bike. Technically we share it because Scott doesn't ride that much, and he really wanted to just keep having a motorcycle so that he could come riding with me occasionally. So I do most of the kilometers on the R7, and the advantage for me in that is that I can stop piling the kilometers onto the Ducati Supersport. Just a couple of weeks ago I crossed 50,000 on that, and I've had it for just over 3 years, and because I love riding so much, I just don't want to wear it out too soon because I love that bike. That Ducati is my dream bike. So I've done nearly 2,000 kilometers on this R7. I've probably done, I reckon, at least 3/4 of those kilometers. And that's good. I mean, it's fun having a different bike to ride, and this is sporty, and you know, for street riding it's got enough power. Heading into some rain by the look of it, yay. So maybe I'll start with the things that I don't really love about this bike. Let's just get them out of the way. One is, on rough roads, like a lot of the roads are around here, the suspension's quite hard for me, and I can feel everything. I have done a bit of adjusting to the suspension following Dave Moss's guidelines for the R7, but I think the quality of the suspension is just not really there, unfortunately. It definitely feels a bit better than the MT-07, to me at least. I'm pretty light, but yeah. I'm about to head up a fairly twisty, rough mountain, and it is much more work on this than it is on the Supersport to hold a smooth line. My Supersport is the S model. It's got Olin suspension, so it's a little bit fancy, and I really can tell the difference for sure. Another thing I don't really love about the R7 is just the quality just feels quite cheap compared to the Ducati. The MT-07 felt the same. Just simple little things like an annoyingly loud clunk of the kickstand when you kick it up. On the Ducati, you can barely hear it. It's just a nice, smooth moving into its up position or down position. I do also like this engine. It's got a lot less power than the Super Sport, but what it has got is torque that comes on sooner in the RPM range than the Super Sport. So I can take corners on this in second that the Super Sport just feels too luggy and I need first. So I can be a bit of a lazy rider on this when I'm not really feeling particularly spirited and I'm just like cruising around just because for the fun of it, you know. Then this engine's a lot more forgiving. It is a light bike to flick around as well, and I can feel the difference between this and the Super Sport in that respect. And because the seat is more of a vinyl rather than the fake suede of the Super Sport, I can slip around on it a bit better. So for tipping into a corner and just getting my body weight off a little bit, it's just so much quicker to just sort of slip to one side or the other side of the seat. Another thing I like about the R7 is that really it's basic. I wouldn't say agricultural, but you know, there's virtually no tech on it apart from the obligatory ABS. But it's not adjustable like it is on the Super Sport. There's no traction control, no wheelie control. I don't do wheelies, so that doesn't matter to me. And I ride pretty smooth, so I haven't had an accidental wheelie yet. But I like the fact that it's basic because it means that I have to ride it. I've got to think about what I'm doing, particularly in the wet. Like these roads are only just freshly wet now, so where the Super Sport will let me know if I'm at the edge of traction and need to be a bit more careful, and if I'm not, it'll compensate for me. This bike won't. So this is a section of road up the mountain I was telling you about that's really rough. There's new mystery potholes around every corner after the rain, and it's I feel every bump, so I can still feel it on the Super Sport, but it just seems to soak it up better, and it's not enough to knock the bike off the line, but this just takes a bit more work to keep the line. I hope you're not looking through lots of droplets of water on the camera lens like I am through my visor. I love the colour of this bike. I love the Yamaha blue. It's sparkly. And even the black, or like kind of black side fairings, they're not actually black. Like I washed it for the first time the other day, and there's this dark blue glittery sparkle, like a midnight blue, that it takes on, which is very nice. So I think the styling and the colour of this R7 is awesome. Speaking of styling, when I first looked at the R7, the headlight fairing in particular, I guess, and the headlights, the first thing I thought of was a beetle, you know, a squarer shaped beetle. And the name that came to me for this R7 immediately was Scarab. So that stuck. Meet Scarab, my R7. It's not really heavy rain, it's just enough to wet the roads and make my visor harder to see through, but I'm not feeling like it's soaking in anywhere yet, which is good. I'm just at the start of a ride. The first hour is to get to the meeting place to catch up with a friend I have not seen in many, many months. Another thing I don't love about the R7 is how difficult it is to clean it. Partly because of the fairing design and partly just because of the way all the other mechanical bits are put together. There just seems to be so many tight spaces and nooks and crannies and areas that are, a lot of them, that are hard to get into and clean properly. And the wheels as well, being all spokey, and there's something about the coating on the wheels that seems to just grab onto the road grime, and you've got to scrub quite hard to get it off. At least that's what I found the first time and only time so far that I've washed it. It probably took half as long again to wash this compared to washing my Super Sport, and my Super Sport was getting a wash at the same time because I'd had it on an 8-day road trip and had ridden through really bad roads, unsealed roads, rain. So it was much grubbier, but it took much less time to clean. Thankfully, cleaning motorcycles is a little bit therapeutic, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. So I did say that the R7 is much more comfortable to Scotty and I than the MT-07 was. That doesn't mean it's a perfectly comfortable bike. For example, and I haven't heard many people complaining about this, but I find there's a vibration through the bars that will make my throttle hand go almost numb after, how long? Maybe after an hour or so of riding. 45 minutes, an hour, but that doesn't happen every ride, so there's something a bit weird going on there for me anyway. It did take me a few rides to kind of get used to the body position, where my feet are on the pegs and where the how kind of low the bars are. At first my back kind of felt a bit funky after a while, but that seems to have gone away. And now I feel pretty comfortable on it, like I'm mostly not even thinking about it apart from my throttle hand, but I'll probably try to find some bar end weights for that. There are a few things that I changed about the bike to make it more comfortable for me. One of the first things was levers, adjustable levers, because the reach was huge for my little hands. So I didn't want to overinvest, so I've got MG Biketec adjustable levers for it, which are great. So when Scotty rides it, he can adjust them out if he wants to, but most of the time they stay in that closer position just by adjusting this little dial here. I also got some tank grips because I found that whenever I was riding downhill, I just keep sliding into the tank. Couldn't really grip onto anything without, squeezing really, really hard, which I don't want to have to do all the time. So I got Eazi Grips tank grips. They're the clear kind. In hindsight, I wished I'd got black because I don't think the clear really enhances the blue. Even though I got the clear hoping that I wouldn't be covering up all the blue with the black, but I still think the black would definitely look sharper. Not to worry. It certainly stopped me from sliding into the tank. I don't have to grip as hard, so that's made it more comfortable. I mentioned that I retuned the suspension based on the Dave Moss recommended settings for the R7, and that certainly made it a little bit less sharp over bumps. I also got some R&G frame sliders, and really the main reason for getting them was the bike is actually taller than my Super Sport. The seat height is taller, and I can get my tippy toes down, but even backing the preload right off, I still cannot get the bike to have much sag at all under my weight. I've gotten used to the height of it, I think, but you never know. Sometimes you're in that situation where you can't quite see how slippery the road is, or where you're parking, or whatever, and sometimes you can slip and things get away from you. So the frame sliders are there for that reason. So far so good though. I did also do a couple of things for convenience. One is this dark screen, and really that was because the dash is one of the things I'm not so impressed with on this bike. It's so hard to read in full daylight. So this screen is tinted dark smoke, and it really helps in making the dash more visible when you just need a quick glance while you're riding along. And the other convenience is a quad lock phone mount, and I ran a USB charger. I don't know if you can see it, it's just up there. I've screwed it in to the headlight fairing, because if I am out all day and I need to navigate, my phone battery won't stand up to that. It needs to have some constant charge. So I've been out for just over 200 kilometers on that ride with my friend. She's on her Super Sport today. The R7, through the kind of roads we're riding, the R7 has no trouble keeping up. I kind of think we can be a bit too precious about how much horsepower a bike has. It's how much we can use on the street that really matters for a bike like this, and the R7 has plenty. If you have some kind of level of respect for road rules, that is. So the range of the tank, I think, is way into the 300s. I think I calculated it a few times, and it was somewhere like 350, 360 kilometers range. And that's sort of one thing I don't like. It's just a little niggle really about the bike, is that you could still have 100 kilometers range left and the fuel gauge is flashing at you telling you to refill. So I think the reserve light comes on, or the refill light, whatever it's called, comes on too early, and that can be a bit of a distraction. It's not actually a light on the dash either, like it is on my Super Sport. It's the last bar on the fuel gauge on the dash starts flashing. It also then automatically brings up on the little trip meter panel a countdown, or no, sort of a count up, I guess, if this is how many kilometers you've done with the reserve light flashing. And that's distracting too, because I don't trust the fuel gauge. I want to look at my trip meter to find out when I need to refill, and it takes that view away from me, and I have to flick back to my trip meter view. Like I said, not a big problem, just a little niggle. So I mentioned that this bike doesn't have a lot of tech, but it does have the obligatory ABS. One thing I'm not really enjoying too much is how sensitive the rear ABS is. It seems to activate very easily and quickly, and I'm not a heavy rear brake user. I mostly use a front brake. On a Super Sport, the rear brake is renowned for being quite soggy and almost useless, so I've always practiced front brake control. So I don't think I'm an overuser of the rear brake. So when I do use it and it triggers the ABS so easily and unexpectedly, it's a bit of a distraction. I've got a feeling I may have listed more things about this bike that I don't love than the things that I do love about it, and it might give you the impression that I don't think it's worth it. I'm not sure that it's worth what I paid for, given having owned a Ducati Super Sport and knowing what I get for the money there. This does feel a little overpriced for the quality, but it's fun and it definitely holds a place in my heart. I just really enjoy how light and playful it is. And I also really enjoy having something different to ride to the Super Sport, so that I'm not piling the kilometres on the Ducati. And definitely for Scott, I think someone who likes to do a bit of street riding, really just because his wife does, and he wants to be part of it every once in a while, but he's really not that interested in very spirited riding. He's not interested in road trips and longer day rides. He just wants to get out, have a little bit of fun through some twisties. This bike is perfect for that, perfect for him. And if I enjoy riding it as much as I seem to, there are certainly days I look forward to getting on this and taking it out for a little rip. Then it must feel worth it to me. I have not regretted our purchase of it. So there you go. One more person's experiences with an R7 HO. 2,000 kilometers into the relationship with it. If you've got one, I'd love to hear your experiences about your time with yours. If you haven't got one and you've got any other questions that I haven't really covered in this video, please just ask away in the comments. And I'm going to now turn my attention to this increasing rain on these twisties. Catch you next time.